So bottom line for this first part, I don't know if it's real or manufactured. We might come out with more information. Everything that's information has a slant, has a twist, has an ulterior motive too. So natural skepticism mixed with what seems the most logical to you, all those things matter. Moving on to the next topic, the next portion of the same topic is COVID-19 solutions. So I don't pretend to have all the solutions, but we've been given a lot of misinformation, and so a lot of people are angry about overreacting, underreacting, everything in between. Use a mask, wash your hands, enough said. The experts, I consider the doctors and nurses on the front line dealing with this in the hospitals, that I believe is absolutely a real thing, from the empty hospitals that are being prepared for those that are going to have overflow until we have reached a peak point. Not all of us have. And we also don't know whether there will be reintroduction into the population. A lot of things to be concerned about. So it really is as simple as don't spread germs, don't spread bad things to each other. But that's the real thing, is that the real problem and therefore the real solutions are, I think the most dangerous thing about COVID-19 is human nature. And it involves selfishness, and therefore selfishness breeds not being thoughtful of others. So really and truly, if you are, oh, it's a big scam, it's a big conspiracy, yada, 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 I can go where I want, do what I want, this lockdown is just about taking all of our freedoms. You know what? A lot of that is true. I agree. A lot of this is going to be even more so about that kind of thing as time goes on. This isn't going to be the end of COVID-19, unfortunately, and it puts some not very safe people in charge of how things are going to be handled. That's a big bummer. But doing your part, none of us would have to be shelter in place if you could just trust people to do the right thing. If you put the word out there saying, this is bad, don't breathe on others, keep your distance, wash your hands, use a mask. And he did that in the first week of a real concern. 90% of the problem goes away immediately. 3 weeks later, we would have had a really bad month, and the month after that would have been about recovery, so another bad month, and then everything would go back to the new normal, which we're all going to face anyway. But people are selfish, and they want to get away with as little inconvenience as possible. And so we do spread these kind of things, and we love the people around us, and we do have loved ones, but there's an impact to them of our selfishness. So continuing forward, if you want this to go on and on and on indefinitely, then just ignore the best advice. If you want life to return to something that we can rebuild from, it's not going to be normal again. Then, bottom line is it really is in our hands, but we're doing what human nature kind of says to do. If you want things to go on indefinitely and be bad, then just ignore good advice. If you want it to get back to normal, do the best version of things that we know. Wash your hands. Don't be rude and get really up in people's faces. Don't touch everything that there is and then forget to wash your hands. So that brings me to the next topic. It's really a continuation of what we're talking about. COVID-19, the real dangers. And I'm back. Mouth moving and everything. The real me. Yes, of course. Gordon Freeman, crypto superhero. The real danger, it's interesting because one of those conspiracy theories, there's a think tank that has been working on how to get us in exactly the kind of situation we're looking at right now with global power, lockdown, control, surveillance, all the nifty things that I'm not a huge fan of. The Club of Rome, a long time back, made a point that, therefore the enemy of man is man. And that was more of a design thing. If we want to get a certain outcome, then we need to make the narrative that the only thing that you can do to control the problem is to control man. Well, I am not trying to give a message that the lockdown is good, that the changes to society are good. None of those things. I am absolutely horrified at what we're going to face as a result of all this. Is the long-term impact of COVID, the lifestyle, worse than COVID, the danger to health? Is that worse? Yeah. The long-term impact is going to be awful. This doesn't just snap back into place. Anything that resembles normalcy after this is an amazing thing. So let's hope that that's the case. But the real dangers, first of all, from the virus standpoint, I've already said it, is that we are the problem. And the real version of that, not the manufactured conspiracy Club of Rome version of that, but the enemy of man being man is in our human nature. And I believe there's a spiritual component to that. A lot of people are so on the math and science side of things that they are agnostic or don't believe the spiritual side of things. That's an entirely different discussion. But I would say that on both sides of that, there's 4 different correlations. One, being religious doesn't make you stupid. Number 2, being a scientist doesn't automatically make you smart. Number 3, being religious doesn't automatically make you smart. And number 4, being a scientist doesn't automatically make you stupid. In dealing with what the real dangers are of COVID, I want to look at the fact that we have, science being reliable science, reliable data. And the issue that I have there is just blindly trusting anything without testing it, whether it is spiritual belief or science. Things can be and are often manipulated to get a desired outcome. Right now, we're looking at the control of populations, and that is a very big concern. Whether it is what started this whole thing or whether it's the, seize the opportunity, we're already seeing some drastic measures that are not right. I was just hearing from the World Health Organization, they're talking about being able to go into people's homes and removing people from their homes. That does not sound like just a concern over spreading a flu to me. So we have a bit of an issue of cause and effect, because if people could be trusted to just take it on themselves to do the right thing, be thoughtful of others, and therefore avoid the things that lead to getting it, washing their hands more often, the masks, keeping a distance, all these different things will help reduce the risk. But since we can't be trusted, it opens the door to make us easier to control and manipulate at a higher level. They can say, therefore, there's a danger, therefore, we have to take all these drastic measures. So then the next issue is kind of a cause and effect and a chain reaction. Something that I would add to the ideas that I was already wanting to discuss. As new news comes out, the scare factor of what that news is can increase. And we really don't know what we don't know. There's news now, somebody is talking about whether the virus is not just being spread through surfaces and touching your face, like doctors are very convinced strongly about that being the case, but that it could have been spread through the water supply. And I just, none of us know exactly to what extent what's going on, but we're going to keep hearing new things, and we do need to be aware of those. So anyway, the cause and effect, that since we know that we can't be trusted to just, I feel fine, so I'm going to go about my day, not to do those things, but to be overly cautious when there isn't a problem, it gives that level of control over to those who want to take advantage of there being a problem, there being a crisis. On one level, if you have honest people trying to deal with a crisis at a political level, there's an agenda, but they're willing to put some of that aside because they don't legitimately want the whole world to die. And then there's the very real possibility of the conspiracy side of things, where there is a shift in control over to money and power and more having data. It was talked about back in World War II that the Germans wanted a technocracy where they could control so many data points that they knew how to not only defeat the enemy, but to control the population. Lots of things that go along with believing in a higher perfect master race type stuff. Well, we see a lot of that re-entered into the humanist, transhumanist, post-humanist movement. And those that I believe very strongly about a lot of the positive things that they speak about, we would differ on that side, because I do see the real tangible danger from the Gates Foundation, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the longevity movement having the good desire will to improve health and to sustain life for a longer period of time has the added effect that it's most likely going to help those at the very top of the chain that have the money and the science on their side, and not help with the issue of the aging population and normal people dying, because you have to kind of have the two hand in hand. Anyway, the cause and effect, we're dealing with a real outbreak with real tangible problems. One of those being that we had an opportunity to get ahead of this, and that deals with something that I would say that I probably am an expert in, exponential growth. When you look at exponential growth, and it's really interesting, I heard Richard Hart just speak to this. I think the first time that I've heard him talk about it recently. I've watched pretty much all his videos, and I agree with a large amount of what he has to say. But in exponential growth, you have the hockey stick is the chart, and I'll put that up when I talk about it specifically with my crypto trading process, a system that I've developed using exponential growth. It looks like the hockey stick. If you look at it all the way zoomed out, it looks basically flat 97% of the time until it slopes extremely sharply at the very end. And that's a good thing if you're talking about a system that helps you to double and double and double your money. It's really bad when you're talking about doubling an outbreak. So you don't want the hockey stick to happen because you don't react when you see it basically as a flat line all that time. But it's a very small number doubling all the time. It takes a while to go from 1 to 2. It takes a little less time to go from 2 to 4, a little less time, 4 to 8, 8 to 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024, 24, 8. You can tell that I've talked about this before. But, I don't have any of this stuff written down. But it not only does it continue to double, but it continues to double at an accelerated point. And so the talking points about, oh, it's not as bad as the flu, the numbers aren't as big, the data's not, statistically doesn't match up. The problem is that you don't have that data until you're done. So if you do overreact, which right now we are probably matching where the threat level is, but we took just long enough to do that to where it has already caused massive damage to our infrastructure and economy. So if you do it when it's going from 1 to 2 to 4 to 8, you might stop it when it is exponentially growing from 4 to 8 to 16, and then it hits a peak around 32, and then it comes back down to 31, 30, 29, 28. And you disrupted something that could have been much worse. Versus if you wait until you can really see the impact of the growth, you're not going to get until 32, 64, 128, 256. Now you're dealing with real numbers. You're trying to bring it down from 256, but it's going to get to 512 just as fast, if not faster, than you would have gotten from 4 to 8. So by the time it's out of control, if we were not doing shelter in place, if we were not keeping people out of circulation, basically, once again, if this isn't something that we've already missed, it's already too late. If you didn't do that, then you would be dealing with an uncontrollable catastrophe that there's not enough people on the front side of the curve to help manage the people on the back side of the curve. So the balancing the peak, controlling the peak, and then watching when it dies off, that's the whole ballgame.